show you my lack of slide skills, but I got this guitar in. It's a 1935 Triolian, and it was in pretty well disrepair. I fixed a broken headstock which was tore up and a really bad repair on it, and we discovered that the top here is a 3/32 of aluminum that was screwed on to the existing top, and part of the sound well has been rebuilt, and the top was cut out here, the original top, and this was screwed in and done to it. You can't see, but in the F-holes you can see part of the old folded over edges of the old top. So I had it in here. The customer decided to have it, wanted it painted, and he wanted to do something like the old polychrome finishes or something close to it. So this is the finish that I came up with. That's the front. But more importantly, I had talked him into doing a stencil on the back, and this is the back stencil which I did as a reproduction of the old Triolians. Get a little closer look. And there you go. It consisted of four stencils. One of which was just these. There was 2 palm trees, and it's mirrored over, and then there's the foreground, background, and this branch here, and the sun. I'll show you. I was going to go ahead and show you how I make the stencils and how I went about getting the pattern. Hope you enjoy the video. Well, I think for starts, I'll explain a little bit about what I've discovered about the old Nationals and the stencil patterns that they did. After researching and looking at Googled some images on the computer, what I noticed was this pattern here seems to be what I call an early pattern. It consists of 2 palm trees basically, and the foreground, background, and the setting sun. This pattern was also used on some tenor guitars. This is the same pattern, same stencil. And after this, I figured that they advanced their artwork a little bit and moved on to this pattern, which is also the pattern that's on the new Triolians that National Triolian is now producing. As you can see, the setting sun and the foreground and background are all the same, and the trees look different. When in reality, what it really is these trees are in here, and then they added another stencil on top of that, which had 2 more trees and part of the branches. As an example, this is a stencil of the 2 trees. And this is a stencil of the other 2 trees, which were later on top. I don't know if this is going to work, but something like that. But it's hard to, yeah, I really can't see. But basically, they had another stencil like that, which was overlaid and registered onto this to produce this. That allowed for these areas in here. It wouldn't be, if this was one stencil, then this area would fall out from the stencil. You wouldn't have all those little like holes in there. And then from that, and it's like usually it's the same foreground and background. On some of these you'll see this little pole, and there's one here and one there. Different stages, their sharpness varies because of the curvature of the back of the guitar. When they laid the stencil over there, where it was made out of rubber or whatever, it led to overspray an area, so they were very consistent in their production. Then there was another pattern. And this is a pattern where you see the this limb here being put in. And to me, it looks like they put the sun up there, and then they took probably the two tree pattern and slid it over and did it again, is what it looks like to me. And that's why it all grouped together there where it overlapped. But if I had to guess, I would guess that's what that is. And then there was this pattern, which I choose for mine, like I say, which is the same foreground, background, and the sun. And this branch, which appeared in this one, which wasn't in either of the other ones, is also in this. But this is just basically the two tree pattern and mirrored over. And that's how it allowed you, as you can see the mirrored images where the X's go. And that's the pattern I chose. There's several ways to make the stencil. One is to take the photograph and do a tracing of it. And then have this, and take this to Kinko's and get it enlarged. Now if you're going to do this like on a silk screen, or use, which someone suggested of using a cabinet liner paper, you could actually put that onto the paper and cut it out and then peel it off. But you'd have to go back and take the little pieces where the holes were and put them in. That'd give you a sharp edge. But to do the stencil, you just have to break it down into the 4 stencils that I sort of mentioned. But that's one way, is to go ahead and make a tracing. As if we could have took this hair one and just did a tracing of the trees off of this, with putting some tracing paper over it, and then take it to Kinko's and have it blown up. But what I did was just I went and took this photograph and I enlarged it to 100% to scale on the computer screen, and then I just laid the tracing paper over the computer screen and traced it. Here it is on my screen. And then I magnify it, and I would have measured from here across the bout to a known distance and got it up to that. And then I laid one tracing paper over, and I did all this foreground and with the sun in it too, but I just separated the sun later. But basically I taped it. I put the tracing paper over the screen, and it obviously I had taped it down with some painter's tape real lightly to hold it in its place, and then I just traced around the tree as much as I could. And then when I got up there, I loosened the tape and I pulled the photo down till I got to the top, and then I would have repositioned it over what I had already had traced, and continued tracing out the rest of it. I mean, you got to go light, obviously, but it's kind of saved the step of taking it to the printers or blowing it up in a printer. And you get the image, the best image you could get, the better, the more refined. But you also have to take into account that the way these photographs are taken, there's some distortion, but you just have to refine that when you make your other drawings.